Live from the Cactus Creek at Ibri, he is the king of primetime, Ghana's undisputed entertainment laureate, and still the youngest old man in Ghana. Put your hands together, show some love for the indefatigable KSM.
The KSM Show.
Folks, I'm telling you, man, I'm extremely excited today because of the guest I have today. I hosted him first in 2012. In 2011, he was selected as the best journalist of the year in Ghana. He won the GJA Best Award. Show him some love. Yes. And when I saw that, the award was in 2012, but he was selected in 2011. And when I got the information, I said, I have to bring this man. I have to talk to him. So the first time I invited him to this show, then TGIF was in 2012. He's back again because this guy is doing something, so we'll be talking about it. But there's a book out. The title is The President Ghana Never Got. Immoral. The President Ghana Never Got. And of course, this is about the presidency of current His Excellency Nana Addo. What made him write this book? There's so many interesting angles and we want to talk about all today. But let me shut up for now. Put your hands together. Show some love for my young son. Put your hands together. Manasseh Azuri. Manasseh, welcome to the show again.
Always a pleasure and an honor to be here. I remember watching you from Kete Krachi Lakeside as a small boy. Not from a TV set in my house, but we didn't own one. So we obviously had to go somewhere and then watch you. And what an honor to be interviewed by you.
Wow, you earned it.
Thank you.
Please have a seat.
Thank you.
Isn't that interesting? Kete Krachi small boy, you're watching TV, looking at this man talking plenty. Today he's my guest. We're going to take a short commercial break, folks. When we come back, I'm going to have him tell us about the president Ghana never got. Stick around, folks. We'll be right back.
The KSM Show.
Is it the luxurious rooms? Or the serene green surroundings? Is it the tempting swimming pool? Or the classy conference room? Or the cute gift shop? Maybe it's our chef's array of cooking delights. Whichever way, it's all about Cactus Creek. A most respected hotel. 055 039 5007.
The KSM Show.
Hello everyone, my name is Johnny Hughes, host of 3FM Sunrise on 92.7 and also Johnny's Bites, the impactful and popular editorial. If you're looking for something to relax you and something to wind down with, kick up your feet, grab a cold drink and enjoy, you know your best bet, the king of primetime television, KSM.
All right, we're back. And I have to admit, that there's something that impresses me most about the guests that I'm talking to these days, is how consistently each of them come and they tell me they were kids when they were watching me, and now they find themselves on my show. And it's not like just that, say they were kids watching me. They have grown up to become very, 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 how do you call it? Very, very, very important people, to the point that I have to reach out to them and say, hey, please come on my show. On this show, all I do is celebrate people, talk to them, and when they've accomplished, we show them some love, like we're going to do just now. Show them some love one more time. Manasseh, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Wow, good to have you. We're going to talk about this book, plus plenty other things. You have done so much. I won't bring you here just to talk about your book and let you go. But the book is The President Ghana Never Got. Before we get into everything, this is a very heavy title. What kind of backlash are you getting? Are you getting any? Let me start from there.
So far, I am not getting much backlash. I think only a few people have said, look, why are you bringing it at this time? Don't you think it will have an effect on the election? And there are some who have read it and say, well, anybody who reads this book and votes for the current administration may have something wrong with them. But the concern has been that, well, you are bringing this book out in this very crucial moment, and it has the potential to dictate how the election may go because of the issues in there. I've also had discussions in government circles and the governing party. A certain cabinet minister said, even before the book came out, that within the circles of government, we are jittery, knowing the title. We know you are going to bring things that are not palatable, and so we are worried, mainly also because of the election. And my response has been that this is not work of fiction. It is an account of things that have happened. So if you are in government and you know you have an election, if you don't time your wrongdoings, then you should have no say in someone who brings out those wrongdoings. So I believe that is what it is. But also some people in government and also in the governing party, including those close to the president, all granted me interviews for this book. So if you read this book critically, you'd realize that almost every issue I talk about, either I've investigated it, either there's a lot of literature on it, or I've done multiple interviews and have corroborations from different sources.
Let's take it from this bit. You know that every ruling party, the biggest fear is, quote unquote, why are you saying things to make the government unpopular? Especially when we're getting near elections.
Yes.
Why are you bringing things out that will make the government unpopular? Because the idea is we have to win this election. So that's why I guess many people are talking to you about the timing. Did you deliberately time it this way? Did you feel that you were doing something that invariably can hurt the government?
No, I needed to, when I was writing this, the intention was to get a book on President Akufo-Addo before he leaves office. That has been the goal. And it is in Ghana that these things are not very common. I think I checked, and in the first or so year of Donald Trump, there were as many as 18 books about his presidency. In Ghana, they all come and go. Nobody tries to write about them. Many of them don't even write their own biographies. I met former President Rawlings before he died in 2016 and asked him whether he was writing a book, and he said yes, he was. The book never came out. I don't know whether he left a message behind that it should be published. Former President Akufo has left office for, I think, it's the 16th year. We still do not have his memoir. Former President Mills unfortunately died quite early, and we cannot hold him to any such expectation. But I know President Mahama has the intention of writing another book when he's done with his politics. But those of us who cover them know so much. We interact with so many people. And the average journalist, after the official interview for any story, sometimes if they respect you enough, they will begin to confess to you, look, some of these things we cannot see on record, but some of us in government are even not happy with what is happening. So I
you
think that
encounter a lot of
yes,
that.
yes,
in your-
yes. So I believe and think that we should get to that point that journalism should move just beyond, move beyond reporting the news. This is also an accountability mechanism that, okay, if I do not do it well, if I misbehave, there are going to be books that will outlive my presidency. And if I don't want to get into or onto the bad pages of our nation's history, maybe let me do things right, or if things go wrong, let me take steps to correct them. And I think all of that would add up to make our democracy better and our country better.
Okay, great. There was this writer, my goodness, I don't remember the year. I think he was writing in 1839 on a show. It was a play. The English title is Conspiracy, but he wrote about how the pen is mightier than the sword. Very, very, very interesting piece of work then. Very, very popular still, you know, that the pen is mightier than the sword, which symbolically meant that intellectual power and knowledge is something that can go toe to toe with physical violence and weapons and everything. This is a clear example of the pen actually ruffling feathers. So let me go on a little bit before this came out. When Mahama was in power, the same pen that you had also ruffled some major feathers. As a matter of fact, the same thing you're being accused of now, that you're feeding into the frenzy of people not making them of making the government unpopular, is what happened under Mahama too. Because you put out stories, I don't want to get into that, that's not what the book is about today, but stories to the effect that you also, at the timing of some of the things you believed, made Mahama very unpopular. Is that part of your dedication to prove how the pen is mightier than the sword, and that your timing will always prove that you can, I don't know, have the last word? Your reaction to that?
Well, I also strongly believe in the might of the pen. Not just what I do, but I've looked across the world. And these intellectuals and writers have shaped the world in a significant way. Politicians don't speak without quoting these great writers. And something very interesting happened in a few years ago. I was going to the Armed Forces Command and Staff College to do something, yes, on the tertiary side. Then one of the barracks there, I was entering, and then there were armed soldiers. So they asked me to roll down. When I rolled down, one this stout soldier, hey, Manasseh, Charlie, you be strong man. Then
These were the soldiers.
yes,
Who had the weapons?
I looked at this man holding weapons, very well built, and then calling this tiny creature in the car
A strong man.
a strong man. So I said, oh, okay. Then strength is not only in the gun, but also the pen. So that to some extent is true, but I believe that as journalists, the main preoccupation is getting your work done. Whoever gets credit or suffers from your work, that should be the byproduct of what I'm doing. It is not very deliberate to set out to make someone unpopular. Not only did I do stories in the other regime that were considered bad, I personally felt that the government at the time didn't do well. So I voted for this administration, this president, in 2016. And I don't think it will be very sensible to say, okay, I want this person to come, I want this person to win, and as soon as the person wins, I begin to do things to make them unpopular. But as a journalist, I always say that I'm not neutral at every point in time. And my point is, if India and Pakistan are playing cricket, I can be neutral. I don't like cricket, and I don't have any allegiance towards these countries.
But so you can afford to be neutral.
Neutral. But when it has to do with the governance of this country, decisions that affect people and affect me, God forbid, but if I collapse on my way out of this interview, chances are that the next hospital I'll be rushed to may be too far away from what ordinarily should have been the case. And chances are also that they might tell me that, oh, there's no bed, take him to Ridge, take him to that.
Yeah.
And we have many people dying such avoidable deaths in this country. So whatever happens, there is a saying or that I like so much, that bad governance is like rain. It doesn't fall on only one roof. It affects all of us. So
Repeat that. Bad governance is like the rain?
Yes.
It doesn't fall on only one roof?
No. The rain will not fall on only KSM's roof, because if it's bad rain because so he invited the rain, no. It will fall on all of us. So I do the work as and when I get a story, or sometimes as and when I get a motivation to write. I initially wanted to write this in 2019 because 2019. I felt, yes, and start in 2019, finish in 2020, because I felt that even for the first 4 years, enough had happened to warrant a book. But I think time didn't permit me, work schedule and others, so I just shelved the idea. And last year, when I was going to Harvard for the fellowship, I conducted some interviews, got the studies and other things, got me busy. But this year I said, no, the year is almost ending, so why don't you start? So in March, I started very slow, but I actually started writing seriously in May, June. Then by July, I was preparing it for publication.
Wow, wow, wow. So you're preparing this book.
Yes.
Very, very explosive, and we'll be going through some of the titles. And the idea is to sort of give a little bit of a preview so that you go and buy the book. That's the whole idea. I'm not going to tell you what the book is about, but yeah, to give you a little bit of insight of what's in the book so that you can decide when and where you want to get a copy. This is quite explosive. I mean, I was reading it and I was like, wow, it's very, very captivating. And I can imagine how many people would like to lay their hands on this. Before I continue, where can people get the book, and who's selling it?
Well, it will be in all the major bookshops by this weekend. I think we underestimated the interest, and also because it's not my first book. In Ghana, you write a book and it takes a year or so to sell 1,000 copies. So when we're doing this, the expectation was quite low, and interest quite high. So we are facing challenges, and we hope that the readers will be patient with us. But hopefully by this weekend, there should be enough copies for people to buy. We sell normally through EPP Bookshop, the Kingdom Bookshop, and also copies at Joy FM, and my social media handles also announce the various outlets through which people, especially those out of Accra, and who don't have these bookshops in their localities where they can get copies. Yes. It's also on Amazon for the international audience, yes. Because,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay, great. The next question is this. This book you have done in consultation with, I would say, people who are very close to the presidency. What did you do? What did it take to get them to sit down with you, open up, whether willingly or unwillingly, they did open up with enthusiasm to have a chat with you. How did you do that? I mean, some of the figures in here, Gabi or Shudakon, pretty key, you know, Kandapa, other characters that you sat down to speak with. How did you get them to talk to you? Did you have to force it out? Did you think they were candid? Tell me.
Yes, I think to a large extent they were candid, even some more candid than I expected them to be. And people often ask, even in my investigative works, how do you get these people to speak to you when they know this is Manasseh and when they know what you're doing? Do you have some spell that you cast over them and then get them to open up? But I said no. What I believe that journalism may bring you onto a collision course with those in power. So there's often that friction. Sometimes it gets nasty. But I have this strong opinion that journalists should work to be respected and not necessarily liked by those in power. And when they respect you, they are prepared to engage you. And they are sometimes prepared to open up to you. And I think that is what worked for me. Of course, a few people said, oh, for ABC reasons or considering my position, I will not be able to grant this interview. Very few. But by and large, those who opened up to the interview spoke candidly. And there were a few occasions that was okay. Some spoke on the condition of anonymity that, well, I can give you the information, but for ABC reason.
Of the record.
Yes, don't attribute it, don't mention my name. Use the information, but don't mention my name. So those are also there. But generally, people like Gabi and Akumia were more candid than I expected. Muntaka Jose Usu about Parliament, telling me how monies come from the Office of the Chief of Staff to the vetting committee. I felt, wow, I didn't expect that.
There's something that you said that I want to just capitalize on for just a quick second, that as a journalist, you think it is important for people not necessarily to like you, but to respect you. And that as a journalist, you shouldn't go in to be liked, but just aim at being respected. Do you see that as a big problem with our journalism right now, that journalists want to be liked or particularly favored by the government in power, so they do what it takes to make sure that they are liked? And how have you told the line of, I don't care whether you like it or not, I'll tell you the truth, but I hope eventually to earn your respect?
Yes, the big problem in this country, and two reasons. One, the price to pay for working to be respected and not liked. You have people trolling you on social media, insulting you, saying all manner of things about you. You have attacks. I have had my own share of death threats, attacks, a whole lot of things. So not many journalists are prepared to carry this cross. So okay, why don't I do it in such a way that they like me? The second aspect is also that people don't really know the value they hold as journalists.
They don't know the value.
No. If you know the power you have, you won't sell it for a morsel of bread. Because two cabinet ministers reached out to me that Manasseh, government circles are feeling uneasy because of your book. In the Mahama era, I remember the day before I released the fourth story, I just put out a teaser. There were not many details, and somebody told me, look, in the Jubilee House, people are running diarrhea. We don't know who is involved. And friends are calling me to find out. I have done stories that led to the cancellation of contracts worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The latest one being the SML scandal, that we're going to lose about $110 million every year. $90 million worth of the contract has been suspended, and then another about 10 or so million dollars cancelled. They are reviving one aspect of it, which is the downstream petroleum sector of that contract. So if you can work and then get these results, you would expect that those who are hurt, those who are going to benefit from these contracts, and sometimes the business people who are getting the contracts are not the only beneficiaries. In many cases, they have their accomplices in the political class. So they're not going to like you, obviously, but they will look back and respect you. And to be able to do that, I think consistency is key. Just do the work, do it honestly and with good conscience. Let people misunderstand you. When Mahama was in power, oh no, the Manasseh is an MPP boy, he did this, and people told so many lies about me. I could have caved into those issues and withdrawn. But I said, okay, I know that my heart is clean, my conscience is clean. Let me do this work. Those who were praising me at the time were in opposition. They come into government and somehow they felt, or they had this expectation that I was going to be different once they are in power. Maybe they are familiar with journalists pitching camp with only one political party, doing their work and then go into hibernation when that party is in government, and resurface when their opponents get into power. But when you are consistent, I've had people in this administration, the Mahama administration, who meet me and say, well, some of us misunderstood you, but looking at what you have done since Akufo-Addo became president, we now respect that if we had journalists like you, if some of us had listened to journalists like you, we may not have gone into opposition. And we also have some, even in this administration, who may not be happy with what I'm doing, but they have a deep sense of respect for the kind of work I do and the kind of work good journalists do in this country. So when it comes to respect, I say that, look, journalists are not celebrities. Once you begin to, you may be popular, you may be famous, but once you begin to drum it into your head that you're a celebrity, you are going to do things that will be celebrated. And things that are celebrated are not part of the things that would earn you respect. If I came to this compound and said, oh, KSM, your place stinks. Why? Or, oh no, your place smells badly. It stinks. I don't think it is something you would be very happy. Oh, thank you, Manasseh. No. You never do that. Even if that is the truth, it hurts to be told that truth. But after you clean up the place, oh, this place now, people can, oh, your place looks, oh. Then what that guy told me, so why did many people not tell me that this compound or there was, the dogs had messed up here and there? So that is the nature of our work. If anybody tells you the truth that doesn't please you, you are not going to celebrate them. And that is how journalists are supposed to be. And sometimes the people they fight for don't behave the way they behave. I mean, the political, they call them party foot soldiers, and sometimes not foot soldiers, but maybe ministers of state. President Mahama has always been my friend, even when he was president. So those who didn't know this, so I hated the man, but we've been friends since. But that shouldn't stop me from doing my work, or if there's some truth to be said about a Mahama administration or his party.
It wouldn't stop you from saying it.
No.
Folks, this is getting, show some love, man, show some love. This is getting very, very exciting, but I'm going to take a short commercial break because there's so much to talk about. When we come back, I'd like to find out something from him, you know. One time you are heralded as a hero and the government loves you, the next minute you're seen as a villain and the government hates you. How do you go through all those changes and still remain who you want to be? It's getting very, very exciting. Let's take a short commercial break. When we come back, I have my good friend Manasseh Azuri in the house. We'll be right back.
The KSM Show.
Is it the luxurious rooms? Or the serene green surroundings? Is it the tempting swimming pool? Or the classy conference room? Or the cute gift shop? Maybe it's our chef's array of cooking delights. Whichever way, it's all about Cactus Creek. A most respected hotel. 055 039 5007.
Hi, my name is Angela Metal, a massage therapist at Cactus Creek. My job is simply to pamper you with the 3 hours, to relax you, to revitalize you, and to rejuvenate you. Come and let me pamper you.
055 039 5007.
Most of you are loving my jacket. Mr. Sao, I am feel rough. The jacket is provided by ASEPA Essentials. So if you want some, this is the number to call.
0247 661983.
So call ASEPA and get yourself a pretty decent jacket.
The KSM Show.
Hello, my name is Bridget Osimizin. You're watching the KSM Show on Pan-African TV, or if you're like me, addicted to YouTube, go to KSM's page on YouTube and watch fantastic interview, great conversation, relax, look, great questions, but not with a bonyo face, you know. Why are you doing this? You know, no, not that kind of interview, but still gets it done. Always the legendary KSM. My name is Bridget. So I say, hey, watch you. If you don't watch, if you want your brain to be small, don't watch.
We're back, and we're hanging out with Manasseh. And we're talking about very, very, very interesting things. And I like the fact that he's hit on about the role of what the journalist is supposed to be. And he says that if the journalist really understood and value their role, they'll realize that they shouldn't be, settling for this crumbs because they have the power. Now, Manasseh, I was talking about, you have taken this lifestyle. You want to be a journalist. And Mahama, just before he left, you said it. You were seen as very, very vicious, that you have an agenda against Mahama. Some people even try to kick in some tribal things. Northerners, they say, you're always going against each other, you won't support your brother, all sorts of angles, And through it all, you said you have to keep your focus because you know that you're telling the truth, Now it's turned, and the person that you used to go against, that his people thought that you had something personal against, and I'm saying, maybe not. Maybe he was just telling the truth. And those who then were heralding you as a hero, Manasseh, he will point it out. They now find you very, very scary, and they don't want to deal with you. And at some point, who would have thought that it would take this administration to send you into some kind of exile for a bit? What is your reaction to all these things? Hero today, villain tomorrow, hero today. What advice do you give journalists who want to toe the line and remain honest to themselves?
It's that advice that let your inner motivation drive you, and then let your intentions be pure. We make mistakes, I make mistakes, but on a whole, I should know that what I'm doing, I'm not doing it to hurt one person against the other. I'm not doing it because I'm going to take something from A to fight against B. And some of the people who attack you also know the truth, but they're only doing your work. I remember when I was writing the 4th John, there was some issues about the central region, why the NDC lost so much in 2016. So I went to interview Alote Jacobs, who was then the NDC chairman of the central region. And then after the interview, so my brother, you have to understand that we are politicians. When you write an article that doesn't favor us, so don't mind he's an MPP boy, they are using him. But when it favors us, we'll be sharing it. So you do your journalism and understand us. We're also doing our politics. That is how we survive. So some of them know what you're doing is right.
You do your journalism.
Yes.
And but understand that we are doing our politics.
So some of the things we do, not that we hate you. And when there were issues about press freedom and attacks, some group of journalists also met the current Minister for National Security, Albert Kandapa. And in that meeting, he said, look, if you journalists knew the power you wield, you wouldn't bother so much about some of the reactions you get. And he said, sometimes you do certain stories. We come out to rubbish the story. We tell you this is trash. We tell you got everything wrong. But at night, we, the politicians, do not sleep. We sit overnight to try to resolve some of the issues we bring out. But we cannot come out openly to sometimes support the things you do. This is Albert Kandapa talking.
Kandapa saying
yes, in the presence of a number of journalists. So with what I know and from my inner convictions, I have come to believe that, look, sometimes just towing the line, doing what you think is right, people can reach so many meanings and so many intentions, so that your purest of intentions could be interpreted as maybe mischievous, or you are being malicious, or whatever it is. But just be consistent, just be fair, just be professional. I remember 2 or so weeks after I did the Mahama Ford story, I started inviting people to my book launch, my first book, The Voice of Conscience. Then I went to invite candidate Akufo-Addo to the book launch. And when we met, young man, you're doing so well, and this kind of journalism, you are the likes we need to build a democracy. You're doing so well. We're supporting you. Keep it up. This was in June or so, 2016. President Mahama and his people at the time were not happy. I am writing a book and I asked Gabi Ochredakon whether or not. Well, I said, I want to speak to the president. And Gabi says, I don't think he'll speak to you. I said, why? He thinks you've been too mean to him.
He thinks you're being mean to him?
Him. That's President Akufo-Addo. And I said, well, if Mahama spoke to me, he said, well, people are different and they may choose to react differently. So whatever caused the person praising me and telling me that I am the kind of people our democracy needs, whatever causes that person to now see what I do as being mean or whatever description they may give to it that I may not be privy to, the difference is that he is at the receiving end of my journalism today. That is the major thing. I don't think much has changed in the work I did in the past and I'm doing now.
There's a part that you have mentioned that you're doing your best, you're keeping your focus, but you're a human being and you've made your mistakes. Are there any mistakes you can identify now in terms of the stories you put out or whatever that you think you probably didn't investigate fully, or maybe you did, but the presentation was not as tidy as you wanted?
Well, I don't regret any of the stories I've done. I think I did one story on this in this administration that there were so many issues. I mean the story on the vigilante boys at the Osu Castle. I stand by all the facts of the story, but the major thing that they used was when it was a TV documentary, but when they were posting a promo online, they used a still photo of some people wearing masks and in gun. And everything about the story, those who criticized it, capitalized on that.
On that picture?
To
on the
attack,
still?
yes, but not the credibility of the story itself. Because the people were there, they were being trained by former soldiers. Their commander was a former bodyguard of President Akufo-Addo, who at the time, they set up the group, said it was a vigilante group that was to protect the MPP against attacks from the NDC. They went to protect the ballot boxes. And these were reports I found even in the Daily Guide as far back as 2012. The president wins, and the I group from people from within was so chosen or named because the leader of the group said they wanted that to be the eye of President Akufo-Addo. So this was obviously a vigilante group, which the National Security Minister even said he had heard reports about some illegalities that the group was perpetuating. So the National Security was investigating them and getting enough evidence to prosecute them. And if you watch the video, you see or hear the leader saying, look, National Security is infiltrating our ranks to get evidence and deal with us. Be careful, because if they get me, if they get you, it means they've got me. And this is their leader talking. So there was obviously something wrong. But that picture, I also feel that as I grow, if there was something I didn't so much get at the very beginning, maybe there or a few occasions I could have, not the story itself, but the aftermath of the story, I could have just allowed certain things to slide. But when you start, you're a bit more emotional, and the more you mature, you are more likely to ignore certain things than in the beginning. When I started, I needed to answer every question or criticism, but I've realized that no, some of the people who are criticizing you know the truth. Some of those telling you you've got it wrong actually agree with you that you got it right. So I am more likely to let certain things slide now than before. But people talk, oh, you said the Guinea fowls did this, Guinea fowls. It is true. there was a guinea fowl story. My report, which is a documentary, is online. There's nothing that anybody has pointed to that in that documentary and said, okay, this fact you said in this documentary. It's about 1 hour. One fact is wrong. All that they rely on is after I did the story, there were conversations in the political circles that, well, we paid money, we didn't see the guinea fowl, so the guinea fowls flew to Burkina Faso. And that became a joke, and then it caught fire. So that is what the people now say, well, the guinea fowls didn't fly. But the documentary I did, the stories I wrote, there's nowhere I said that the guinea fowls flew. In any case, whether or not the guinea fowls flew was not the substance of the story. The substance of the story is we paid money to have a guinea fowl factory of a sort. We didn't get that done, and the money went wasted. So people say all manner of things, but the stories I have done, if I had the opportunity, I would do them again.
Wow. There's nothing looking back, you say, well, I did this before, and if I was to redo it, I'm going to come at it from a different angle. You're saying you do everything you did, you will do again.
Yes.
Because you are that confident.
Yes, and perhaps better. Because when I started doing investigations, I hadn't learned investigative reporting anywhere. I didn't study it in school, and I didn't even call myself an investigative journalist till the story started producing impact. And people beginning to know that, well, this is not your normal day-to-day reporting. So I know more now than I knew at the time. And if I were to do those stories again, perhaps they may be bigger than what I did in the past.
Wow. I'm going to go in the next few minutes to some of the titles in this book, the areas that you chose to write on, very, very, very heavy loaded areas that you chose to go into. But before we get there, let me just take us all further back a bit. What spurred this whole interest into journalism, and more importantly, this investigative aspect of journalism that is bringing out so much scandals, bringing up so much controversies and things? What spurred it? Did you set out to become a journalist? And tell me a little bit about that before we get into the titles.
When you are growing up as a child, you have fantasies. You nurture many dreams. And one of the dreams was to become a bank manager.
Oh, you wanted to be a bank manager?
Yes. As of the time I was completing junior high school. So I went to high school to do business accounting. So I studied business accounting in Karachi Secondary School. And at the time, well, many factors have motivated me, but the Ghana Commercial Bank branch manager in Karachi had a small Opel Salunka or something of that sort, and it was in tie and suit. And if they tell you the bank, what do they do there? It's where money is. And who is the boss there? Or this person.
That guy.
Yes. So there was that motivation to become like him.
He wanted an Opel, to own a small Opel like that too.
Oh, yes. In Karachi, how many people had private cars? So it was part of the motivation.
Yeah.
But I got to high school, joined the drama club because I was acting in Sunday school. I started writing plays, later short stories.
You were writing plays?
Yes.
Like stage plays?
Stage plays.
Really?
And I also acted because...
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so I remember...
You're on stage?
Yes. I remember getting Harry Lord's address on the back of a cassette and writing to him that I wanted to be an actor.
You wrote to Harry Lord?
Yes, Harry Lord production.
Hoping he would cast you in one of his movies or something?
Movies, yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes. So all those things happened, but in the course of the writing, someone discovered my skills, and I actually applied to UCC to do Bachelor of Commerce in 2005 when I completed SHS. So I didn't get admission, and that was the only form I bought that year. Whilst I was waiting to reapply the following year, I met a man who said, "Oh, you write well, why don't you consider journalism?" And I thought, well, this sounds good. I applied to the Ghana Institute of Journalism, got admission, and the rest they say is history. When it comes to investigative journalism, I didn't dream of being an investigative journalist after leaving school. I did rural reporting, developmental stories, bad roads, schools, and marginalized people. And then one day in 2013, I think January, somebody called me to a meeting at the press center and said, there is this problem at the Youth Employment Agency that the management, some of the management members are finding ways to siphon funds that are meant for the beneficiaries. They create what we call ghost names. People who don't exist, and then monies are channeled into the account, and they find ways of getting the money. National security had been invited to investigate, but they were members of the government, so they shielded them. I remember the amount that had evidence of the, maybe call it theft, was just 23,000 Ghana cedis, but it became a 1 billion cedi scandal that sent 2 people to jail, that led to the cancellation of all the contracts except one, that resulted in the passage of the Youth Employment Agency Act by Parliament. Dozens lost their jobs, and we saved not less than $100 million from that investigation. And that was when it dawned on me that, look, what you are doing can really be impactful. And that's how my investigative reporting with the youth employment scandal.
And after that, what was the next thing that you got into, just to build on that investigative trajectory?
Well, after that, I did a story on the, what was then called the gay doctor story or scandal, that a senior medical officer at the Fiankwanta Hospital was sexually abusing young boys. I did the SADA story and a few others. Surprisingly, I've done bigger stories in the Akufo-Addo administration than the Mahama administration. Okay, in the Mahama administration, I think the other big one was the Ford scandal.
The Ford, yeah.
Yes. But 2017, for instance, I did a story on robbing the assemblies, under Akufo-Addo. A lot of the scandals, or those contracts, had started in the Mahama era and then continued into the Akufo-Addo administration. And that story led to the cancellation of a $74 million contract that was fraudulently awarded to the Jospon Group by the government. Then 2018, I did this story titled Grounded Wheels. Then 2019, I did, I think, the Return Bribe, and also, that was Return Bribe was 2020. 2019, I did the Contracts for Sale. That led to the prosecution of, he's currently being prosecuted. He was dismissed, the head of Public Procurement Authority. The story on the Vigilante Group was also in 2019. 2020 into 2021, I did a story, the scandal Akufo-Addo initiated. It is in this book. I've written about it. A few others, and then the latest one has been the SML scandal, which Kwesi Pratt said on TV that this is the mother of all scandals.
Put your hands together, man. Oh, wow. Well, I'm just trying to get into his trajectory of things, before we end up on this book. Because the book, like I said, the president Ghana never got. That's a very loaded title. And I know there are some of the chapters in here that I want to look at. One of the chapters is that we got him, but we could not get him. We got him, but we didn't get him. What's the idea here? That the Nadu that we got, that we voted for, is not the one that we got, that we voted for? Explain.
Okay, this is I think the prologue, which talks about, call it the great expectation, the arrival of the Savior, the coming of the incorruptible one, the Jose Mourinho of our time, the special one. We got all the accolades, and some of us said, well, they say don't trust politicians, but there's something about this man that you can trust. Even if you don't like him, at least you can trust that he will change things. I remember telling people that if Akufo-Addo did half of what Muhammad did, then Ghana is doomed. Not only did he do, if Akufo-Addo became president and did half of what Muhammad did, as in the issues of bad governance, then Ghana was doomed. He didn't do half, not even twice, but he appeared to have quadrupled the sense of the Muhammad era. And that is not the Akufo-Addo some of us expected. That the so-called champion of human rights and press freedom would become president, and that our ranking on the global or world press freedom index would move from 30 and below to 62. That is not a Akufo-Addo some of us expected. I didn't expect, as Charles Rekobrobe Tarzan reveals in this book, that he felt that even the Rawlings era was more receptive of dissenting views and press freedom than the Akufo-Addo era. And that, for me, is a very big indictment on the man who fought side by side Tarzan on these same issues. The man who was a lawyer for Tarzan when Tarzan set up Radio I without any license from the NCA. I didn't expect that this man would become president, and then Radio Gold, Munti FM, and some radio stations would have their licenses revoked, when many others who had been in that category were left. I didn't expect that under this president, who we're told was the champion of human rights and press freedom advocate, would become president, and then journalists like us, journalists he praised in opposition, will begin to live in fear, having to go out, and sometimes resorting to therapy from psychologists to survive the mental torture.
Did you go through therapy?
Yes, I did.
What mental torture are you talking about?
When you leave your house and that you have it at the back of your mind that today could be your last day, there is no mental torture that is worse than that. When you leave your house and your wife is begging you that, look, I'm too young to be a widow, it is mental torture. When you meet 10 people who care about you and 6 or 7 always part with the same message, Manasseh, be careful. These people, the way they are behaving, you can't be sure what they could do. It reinforces that. When you report death threats to the police, not just any police station, but the police headquarters, that's where I reported all the death threats. Nothing came out of it. No person was arrested or ever.
How many times did you report?
Like 3.
3 death threats.
I stopped.
Yeah.
Because on one occasion, I think I even spoke about it on radio, Joy, and then the person sent a follow-up email that you are speaking about. If you are lucky and I'm caught, you are free. But if I don't get caught, I'll surely deal with you. And I forwarded this same message to the head of the cybersecurity unit. I think it's called Dr. Youngson, a police officer, at the police headquarters. Then followed up, well, we've written to Google to give us what information, it hasn't come, and then there's nothing. So that is how it's always been. At a point, I was giving armed police escorts, which to the outsider would tend to create a sense of security. but it actually sent, or within you, you get a different mental reaction. If you are driving and someone is holding a gun sitting by you, it constantly reminds you how unsafe you are. So,
you got to that point?
Yes. I've gone through so much, and sometimes we don't talk about everything, and for security issues, I can't still even talk about everything, and or family and other reasons, I cannot disclose everything, but I've gone through so much personally, and I know journalists who have said, look, what is the point in subjecting myself to this? So let me just do what I have to do and go home and sleep in peace. And so there has been a culture of self-censorship. And when this man, I think Sam Jonah, mentioned the return of the culture of silence, he was taken to the cleaners. But that is a reality. Some are even so scared that they don't want to talk about it, because when you talk about it, they'll come heavy at you. So all these things have happened, and I didn't think that President Akufo-Addo, for instance, who in 2011, I think in a speech in South Africa, yes, he was very categorical about the law of publishing false news, which the police used to harass journalists. When he became president, a number of journalists and civil society actors were harassed using this law. They were arrested and charged. Some were even put in police cells and all of that. And on 2 occasions, the people said things about the president's family. So when you see all of these things happening under a president who was supposed to be the exact opposite of those promoting them, then you begin to wonder whether or not this is the Akufo-Addo we're marketed to. And I think, no, he was not. So even though we got a man called Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as President of the Republic of Ghana, this is not the Akufo-Addo we wanted. So we didn't get the Akufo-Addo that was sold to us. And if he had died without becoming president, his tribute, as I indicated in the book, would have been replete with the statement, Ghana lost a golden opportunity to have the visionary president, the incorruptible president, the so-and-so president to develop the country. Unfortunately, they would say we didn't get him, but we got him. And I think the institutions of state are weaker than they were before Akufo-Addo became president. And for me, there's corruption. There are a lot of terrible things that have happened. But the biggest challenge with the Akufo-Addo presidency is the weakening, systematic weakening and undermining of state institutions. And this might take a lifetime to recover, if we could even recover at all.
If we can recover at all, it's going to take a lifetime.
Yeah.
What are these state institutions, in your opinion, that you think have been jeopardized?
You have journalists who are empowered by the Constitution to hold the government accountable. Now the question is, how many journalists are able to do this? Of course, there are a few who run here and there, but critical journalism is dying. Many newsrooms, because of the pressure that is brought to bear on some of them, are not willing to take certain risks. And that, for me, is key. I met a soldier, a top military officer, who said, look, in the military now, it is not about how professional you are. When you get to a certain rank, from colonel upwards, you have to show your party colors and hope that when your party gets into government, they would appoint you. And a second soldier also said that, look, politicians used to interfere and all of that, but what we're experiencing now is not something we have seen before. Quite recently, the World Bank also downgraded Ghana's audit service in terms of independence and credibility. What did the Akufo-Addo administration do? Arguably the best Auditor General Ghana has had since independence is Daniel Domelevo. Akufo-Addo hounded him out of office with the connivance of the judiciary. And if you read this book, you understand how the judiciary of Ghana was an accomplice in that misbehavior. Even when people sued that, look, it is unconstitutional for the president to force this man to go into or to leave office or force him to go on leave, people took the matter to the court. The Supreme Court waited, this happened in 2020, till until 2023 to pass a judgment. And I tell you, they could have sat and ruled on that case within a week or two, because we've had the Supreme Court expediting cases of that nature, and some even more complicated. Whenever there were election-related registration is coming and somebody wants to frustrate the process, they go to the court, they order them, file your arguments within this date, and will pass judgment. And then the process continues. So the Supreme Court of Ghana could have decided on that case within 2 weeks and allowed Domelevo to come back to office. But they didn't. For instance, the Jachi case, the Asin North MP, NDC MP, who was eventually disqualified and everything. That election was held, the election was held in December 2020. The case started in 2021 or so. It went through the High Court, it went to the Court of Appeal, the Supreme Court finally passed the judgment. The seat was declared vacant. So they went through all these processes. They were able to finish. But the Auditor General's case, which was a constitutional interpretation as to whether or not the president had the power to do this, they came out only in 2023, long after the man had left and was now working somewhere, to pass the judgment and say, well, there are no consequential orders because the man is no longer in office and nothing. But they said what the president did was wrong. So if the Supreme Court had a mind that is to protect the institution of state, it would have said, look, this is a very critical matter. We shouldn't allow the the executive to be undermining the institutions that are supposed to hold it accountable. So let's deal with this case. And if they have said, look, the president is wrong, at that time, the Auditor General would have returned to office. And I've cited instances that the court or the judiciary has been, and there's actually a title, the judiciary, a tamed accomplice.
And we'll be getting into some of the titles, but folks, this is getting so hot and juicy, and there's quite a bit of ground to cover. But please, this book is so profound, and some of the titles in the book will just blow your mind. We have a title that is called A Short Man Born on a Tall Ant Hill. We have When Prime Minister Gabiodich Ochidako Called the Bank Manager. We have so many amazing titles in this book. You've got to get this book. But let's end it for now. We come back for the next 30 minutes, and when we come back, we'll tell you more about when you can get this book. Let me wrap up for the TV audience. For those of you watching online, just tune in tomorrow for the final conclusion. The conclusion for TV will be next week. But in the meantime, folks, stick around because we have not finished. Let me end as I always do, but Manasseh, I will let you go. I'll keep you for just a few more minutes. But in the meantime, in between time, we are out of, let the whole world say,
The KSM Show.